Did you know that certain foods in your kitchen right now might be the secret to stopping hair loss? You heard that right. No expensive treatments or surgeries needed. Just simple natural foods that can block DHT, the hormone linked to hair loss. Want to know what they are? Keep watching. Now, let's talk about two everyday items that might become your hair's new best friends: green tea and coconut oil. You might already enjoy these for their taste or cooking benefits, but did you know they could help with hair loss too? Green tea is more than just a refreshing drink. It contains something called epigallocatechin gallate, or EGCG for short. This compound has some pretty impressive properties that might help your hair. EGCG is known for fighting inflammation and acting as an antioxidant. These qualities could protect your hair follicles and even stimulate hair growth. But here's the interesting part. EGCG might also boost your immune system and prevent hair cell death. That's a fancy way of saying it could help keep your hair around longer. Now, it's important to note that while these findings are promising, the research is still limited. You might want to check with your doctor before starting any new supplements. Now let's move on to coconut oil. You've probably heard about its many uses, but here's one you might not know about. Coconut oil contains something called lauric acid. This is a type of fat that some studies suggest might block DHT production when taken orally. Remember, DHT is that hormone linked to hair loss we mentioned earlier. But before you start chugging coconut oil, keep in mind that we need more studies on humans to be sure about its effects on hair loss. Still, it's an interesting possibility, isn't it? So how can you use these potential hair helpers in your daily life? For green tea, it's pretty simple. You might try swapping out your usual morning beverage for a cup of green tea, or if you're feeling creative, you could use green tea extracts in your cooking. As for coconut oil, you have a few options. You can use it in your cooking, of course, but you might also try massaging it directly into your scalp. Some people even use it as an ingredient in homemade hair masks. Remember, while these foods show promise, they're not magic solutions. Hair loss can have many causes, and what works for one person might not work for another. But if you're looking for natural ways to support your hair health, adding some green tea and coconut oil to your routine might be worth a try. In the next section, we'll look at two more surprising foods that might help fight hair loss. You probably have these in your kitchen too, and you might be surprised at how they could benefit your hair. Stay tuned to find out what they are and how they work. Now let's talk about two ingredients you might not expect to help with hair loss: onions and turmeric. These common kitchen staples aren't just for adding flavor to your meals, they might actually help fight hair loss too. First up, onions. You might be surprised to learn that these pungent vegetables could be good for your hair. Onions are packed with antioxidants, especially something called quercetin. This compound might help block DHT, the hormone linked to hair loss. How? Well, quercetin seems to stop an enzyme that turns testosterone into DHT. It also fights oxidative stress, which can damage hair follicles. But before you start rubbing onions on your head, there's something you should know. While the science looks promising, we don't have studies showing exactly how eating onions or taking quercetin supplements affects DHT levels in humans. So, it's a bit early to say for sure how much they'll help. Now let's move on to turmeric. This bright yellow spice isn't just for curry. It contains a compound called curcumin that might also help with hair loss. Some early studies suggest that curcumin can lower DHT levels by blocking the same enzyme as quercetin. This means turmeric could potentially help keep your hair healthy. But again, we need to be careful not to get too excited. Just like with onions, we don't have enough human studies to say for sure how well turmeric works for hair loss. The research so far is promising, but we need more to be certain. So, how can you use these ingredients to potentially help your hair? For onions, it's pretty simple. You can add them to lots of dishes. Try putting some in your salads, soups, or stir-fries. As for turmeric, it's quite versatile. You can use it in curries, of course, but you can also add it to rice dishes or even blend it into smoothies. Remember, eating these foods isn't guaranteed to stop hair loss. Hair loss can happen for many reasons, and what works for one person might not work for another. But if you're looking for natural ways to support your hair health, adding more onions and turmeric to your diet might be worth a try. It's also important to note that while these foods show potential, they're not a replacement for medical advice. If you're worried about hair loss, it's always best to talk to a doctor. They can help you understand what's causing your hair loss and suggest the best treatments for you. In the meantime, why not experiment with some new recipes using onions and turmeric? You might discover some delicious new dishes while potentially giving your hair some extra support. And who knows? These common kitchen ingredients just might become your new secret weapons in the fight against hair loss. Pumpkin seeds and edamame small foods, big impact. Now let's move on to two more foods that might help with hair loss. These are small but mighty, pumpkin seeds and edamame. You might not think much of these tiny foods, but they could have a big impact on your hair health. First, let's talk about pumpkin seeds. These little green seeds are packed with nutrients that your hair loves. They're rich in iron, zinc, and magnesium. These minerals are important for keeping your hair healthy and growing. Some research shows that pumpkin seeds might even help prevent hair loss. A study in 2021 found something interesting about pumpkin seed oil. When people applied it to their scalp for 3 months, it seemed to help prevent female pattern hair loss. It even helped increase hair growth. Another study in 2019, this time on animals, also found that pumpkin seed oil promoted hair growth. But before you start eating pumpkin seeds by the handful, remember that we need more research. These studies are promising, but we need more human trials to be sure about how well pumpkin seeds work for hair loss. Now let's talk about edamame. These green soybeans are more than just a tasty snack. They contain something called isoflavones. These are plant compounds that might help with hair loss. How? Well, they might lower DHT levels in your body. Remember, DHT is that hormone linked to hair loss we talked about earlier. A study from 2007 showed that soy protein, which includes edamame, can reduce DHT levels. This suggests it might be good for your hair health. But again, we need more research to be sure. So how can you add these foods to your meals? For pumpkin seeds, it's pretty easy. You can sprinkle them on your salads for a nice crunch. Or you might add them to your morning yogurt or oatmeal. They're also great in homemade trail mix. As for edamame, you can enjoy them as a snack. Just steam them and add a little salt. You can also add them to stir fries or salads for extra protein and fiber. Remember, while these foods show promise, they're not guaranteed to stop hair loss. Hair loss can happen for many reasons, and what works for one person might not work for another. But if you're looking for natural ways to support your hair health, adding some pumpkin seeds and edamame to your diet might be worth a try. It's also important to note that while these foods might help, they're not a replacement for medical advice. If you're worried about hair loss, it's always best to talk to a doctor. They can help you understand what's causing your hair loss and suggest the best treatments for you. In the meantime, why not experiment with some new recipes using pumpkin seeds and edamame? You might discover some delicious new dishes while potentially giving your hair some extra support, and who knows, these small foods just might have a big impact on your hair health. From plate to scalp. Maximizing the benefits. Now that we've talked about these 6 foods that might help with hair loss, you might be wondering how to actually use them in your daily life. Well, don't worry, I'm going to show you how to create a simple plan that includes all of these foods in your weekly diet. First, let's start with green tea. You can easily make this part of your morning routine. Try swapping out your regular coffee for a cup of green tea. It's a simple change that might make a big difference for your hair. For coconut oil, you can use it in your cooking. Try using it instead of your regular cooking oil when you're frying or sautéing. You can also add a spoonful to your smoothies for a tropical twist. Now, onions and turmeric. These are great for adding flavor to your meals. You can add diced onions to your salads or use them in stir fries. For turmeric, try sprinkling it on roasted vegetables or adding it to soups. Pumpkin seeds make a great snack on their own, or you can sprinkle them on top of your salads or yogurt. As for edamame, you can steam them and eat them as a snack, or add them to your salads or stir fries. Now you might get even more benefits if you combine some of these foods. For example, you could make a stir fry using coconut oil, onions, and edamame, or you could make a smoothie with green tea, coconut oil, and pumpkin seeds. These combinations might work together to give your hair extra support, but before you start eating these foods by the handful, there are a few things you should know. While these foods are generally safe, it's always a good idea to be careful. If you have any allergies or health conditions, you should talk to your doctor before making big changes to your diet. For example, if you're allergic to soy, you'll want to avoid edamame. And if you're taking certain medications, you might need to be careful with green tea. It can interact with some drugs, so it's best to check with your doctor first. Also, remember that more isn't always better. Eating too much of any food, even healthy ones, can cause problems. For example, coconut oil is high in calories, so you might want to use it in moderation if you're watching your weight. To make it easier to include all these foods in your diet, you might want to plan your meals for the week. You could have green tea Mondays where you focus on drinking green tea throughout the day. Turmeric Tuesdays could feature curry dishes made with coconut oil. Onion Wednesdays could include lots of dishes with sautéed onions. Remember, these foods aren't magic cures for hair loss, but they might help support your hair health when used as part of a balanced diet. And who knows, you might discover some new favorite recipes along the way.